Shabbat Shalom. On February 11th, 1986, reporters from around the world gathered in West Berlin on the western side of the Glickman Bridge as Natan Sharansky was released as Mikhail Gorbachev's first freed political prisoner. Sharansky had been in Soviet prison since 1977. His release was symbolic of the floodgates that would open as our brothers and sisters who lived under Soviet rule were free to leave, and hundreds of thousands of Russian Jews came here to Kansas City, to America, and to the state of Israel. During Sharansky's imprisonment, his wife Avital was a tireless advocate, crisscrossing the world, giving speeches at protests, speaking with world leaders, a brave advocate for her husband's release. And here in America, Jewish youth who were secular, religious, of every denomination, demonstrated, sang, prayed, and learned about the struggle for Soviet Jewry. Sharansky's freedom, though, came not only through external forces. It was not only the amazing work of his beloved Avital. It was not only the advocacy and championship of Jewish communities throughout the world, and it was not even the political work in America and elsewhere that worked to secure his release from the changing Soviet regime. Natan Sharansky's freedom first came from within him. During his time in prison, he played countless chess games against himself. He also kept with him a small book of psalms given to him by Avital. He read and reread these psalms throughout the imprisonment. Sharansky's internal strength and inner faith is what kept him a free person, even when inside a tiny cell. Upon his release at that famous Bridge of Spies, Sharansky demanded the book of psalms be returned. He would not leave his own captors until he had the book of freedom given to him by Avital. The Russians told Sharansky to walk in a straight line across the bridge. As a final act of rebellion, Sharansky zigzagged across the bridge. And by that night, he was celebrating with throngs of Israelis at the Kotel in Jerusalem. His first words to his wife upon their reunion: "I'm sorry that I was late." In this week's Torah portion, we read the famous blessings and curses that conclude the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. In this passage, we see a few short verses that describe the type of relationship that we can have through faith. God says, "I will be ever present in your midst. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, of the Egyptians, to be their slaves no more, who broke the bars of your yoke and made you walk upright." Sforno, the 15th century Italian commentator, says that God's promise to help us walk upright is the opposite of how Isaiah describes the desires of our enemies. Isaiah says that our enemies tell us to get down so that they may walk over us. The final and most triumphant reward that we can have in our relationship with God is the internal faith to walk upright. As we pass through these dark times, having both faith in a better future and working together toward a better future can give ourselves uplift and bring uplift toward others. As we see in the Talmud, the way that we walk in God's ways is to act like God through acts of chesed, loving kindness. But one quality that is not mentioned, and I think is absent, is the ability that God has to help others walk upright. I believe that by digging deep for the faith that can help us walk upright, it will give us the strength to also lift up the others around us. In a profile of Sharansky in the Washington Post, soon after he was released, he is described as no more than 5'4" in his socks. Sharansky's strength of mission, his internal courage, the devotion of his wife, and the faith that he had in his people and in his God brought him out as tall as a giant. And more than that, he raised up the heads of every Jew, and he also shone a spotlight on the plight of political prisoners everywhere. So my hope for all of us this Shabbat is that we not only dig deep for the faith to stand upright, but we also have the courage and the strength to raise up one another. Shabbat Shalom.